All right, good freaking morning. Is that what it is? Good freaking morning. It is Monday, what's the day? 12th already of October, the middle of October already. We're getting closer and closer to that wonderful holiday of Halloween. But as we creep up on that, today is, well, some people would like to call it Columbus Day. I like to call it Indigenous Peoples Day. And so, welcome to this Monday, October the 12th, 2020. Remember, if you wanted to get it done this year, and even in October, you don't have much longer to get it done. So, if you procrastinate, the time is going to get away from you, and you're going to be saying, "Oh, dang, I didn't get that done. What'd I do?" So there's a lot you can do, regardless of social distancing, regardless of wearing a mask, regardless of being safe and practical and smart, I might add. Yes, there's a lot that can be done. I have accomplished a lot this year, and I don't consider myself the top-notch, smartest knife in the drawer, sharpest knife in the drawer. How's that? See, that's how unsharp I am. I can't even get the old saying right. Bottom line is that I try to learn from my mistakes. I try, in a study of history, to learn from the mistakes that our forefathers have made. And when I say forefathers, I take it across the board. Every human being that ever lived in ancient history way before me, we've all got a little bit of, none of us are purebloods, so we can get over that. It's amazing the people that are truly racist against blacks and this, that, and the other. They get a DNA test and find out, oh, you got some of that blood in you. What do you know? You just didn't get all the pigment in the skin. And that's all it boils down to. We're all human. And this is part of my rant this morning about Indigenous Peoples Day. We live in a country that lives in constant fear. Why do we love guns so much? We love guns because we live in fear. We live in fear of each other. We live in fear of people that are not like us. We live in fear all the way across the board. Brave people don't have to depend on guns, the love affair of weapons. That's not bravery. The bravest people, and I've often brought this to the attention of this generation of people that's coming up now. The cops, the soldiers, National Guard, all of them are not the heroes. None of them fought for your grandmother to be able to vote, have equal rights. None of them fought for your black grandfather to have a right of equality, to be able to sit at the front of the bus, to be able to do all those things. The ones that accomplished those great feats in our society were unarmed. The ones that made those big moves, those big changes toward equality and freedom, were both unarmed and stood up against the armed, well-armed government, police, military. You're honoring the wrong people. You're honoring the wrong people. I'll say it again. You're honoring the wrong people. And in saying that, I'm not saying to disrespect police or military. That's not my point. They're not the heroes. Police are law enforcement. They are there to enforce the law, and they don't care if the law is just or not. That's the point. They're not there to change the law. They're not there for your equality. They're not there for justice. They're there to enforce law. And they will make their decision based on what they see and write the reports accordingly, and they will harm you and they will kill you. And many times suffer no adverse effects, no punishment for horrible behavior. Maybe you say that would change, but I'm not holding my breath on it. I've seen too much, been around too long, and I do not. They're men. They're all human. And the brave ones again were the unarmed men and women who stood up against these police and against these paramilitary forces of National Guard and the military, unarmed, and stood their ground and endured torment by the government and government officials. Those are your true heroes, and they did it unarmed. See, the reason that Americans are so consumed with guns and military and so forth is because they know from their own actions what could happen to them. They know what they did to the indigenous people of this land. So they live in constant fear of somebody doing it to them. Some people would say they live in fear of karma, because that's what it boils down to. And that's why they are so afraid in this country, because it's not what they saw take place in other nations that scares them. It's the history of our own nation that scares them. When they drive by a reservation, we call it an Indian reservation, there's no Indians. The explorers who came and landed on these shores thought they were landing in India, because the initial intent of these explorers was to find a trade route to India. And so they initially thought they landed in India, and they called them India. And then because we're so cocky, we're so arrogant, we're so self-absorbed, we later on labeled them Native Americans when there was no such thing as America. They were not Americans, they were not Native Americans, they were indigenous. There were many different tribes, different groups of these people, and we chased them off their land. I say we, because I'm not. I may have some indigenous blood in me. Like I said, by now in our history, you'd be hard pressed to find pure blood, if you will. So anyway, that is where we are, my friends. That is the reality of it. That's why people in our country are so consumed with their guns. They're scared, and that's what fear does. And fear sells. And so the politics rules on fear. The Democrats on one side, the Republicans on the other, and they sell fear. We lived in fear of Castro, and he outlived how many of our presidents? We lived in fear of Russia. We live in fear of China. Just constant fear. And our lives are controlled of fear. 9/11 took place when we reacted in fear. We gave up freedoms in fear. We gave up privacy due to fear. They win because we gave up. And we call ourselves courageous. We call ourselves whatever. But yet, what do we find ourselves standing opposed to? Wearing a mask. Social distancing of a disease. That's the problem we have there. We will give way to giving up our freedom of movement. Most of my adult life, until after 9/11, I could travel to Canada and Mexico with driver's license. It was no big deal. You know, sure, went through checkpoints. And then we used 9/11 to ramp things up to where we just pretty much shut down our borders. You've got to have a passport to get in and out of the country. You're no longer a world citizen. You're forced to be an American citizen. Forced. You had no choice in where you were born. And people fail to get that. You just happened to have been born here. Some in the 20th century and some in the 21st century, you didn't have a choice in it. So automatically you take some arrogant pride in where you were born, not even giving any ounce of consideration to the fact that you had nothing to do with that. There's nothing to be proud of. You had nothing to do with that whatsoever. You took no steps in that at all. Our worst enemy is ourselves and always has been. I have a lot of, some younger people have said, when did we get so bad? And my comment is all, have you ever studied history? When did we get so bad? We've always been bad. See, the question is not that we got worse. We didn't get worse. The question is we never got any better. Study history. For the Christians and the Jews out there, read the Old Testament, the Torah, read the stories that were written thousands of years ago. Regardless of who wrote them, regardless of whether they were true, those thoughts were clearly put there, either because they were happening or somebody imagined they could happen because of what they saw with what humans do with each other. Go back to the Inquisition. This pandemic we're going through is kind of, you think we could be more mature about this, but we're self-absorbed. We're spoiled, and that's what's going to ruin our nation is we are rotten spoiled. I posted a meme this morning that said, and it goes back to Jesus when he talks about the widow's mite. You don't hear Christians talk about these things anymore because it doesn't fit their worldview. I call them cultural Christians. They're not real Christians. They don't even, they ignore more about Jesus' teachings than they want to tune in. It's just not there. But the widow's mite, the bottom line is, if I gave you $10 and then someone else came along and gave you 20, who are you going to be the most grateful to? Well, most people probably say, the one that gave me the most money, clearly. But see, it's like Jesus said, it's the one that gave all. That was only $10 I had. I gave everything I had to you. I didn't have the tens of thousands of dollars the guy that gave you $20 had. He didn't make a sacrifice. People praise Trump because he gave up his salary, donates his salary. It's like, with the money he goes through, that's no sacrifice. Honestly, that's no sacrifice. JFK did the same thing. He's not, Trump's not the first president. There's been other presidents that have donated their salaries to charity. Earlier presidents in our nation didn't get a salary at all. It's called public service. Now we make royalty out of these people. They become like cult followers to these people. You cannot criticize. Right now, if you criticize Trump, all of a sudden you're labeled and bashed out at it like that. No, you just don't criticize Trump. That's the danger right there. That's how dangerous our system has gotten. And I said long ago, we don't need foreign terrorists, foreign entities, somebody outside of our nation. That's not how we're going to fall. It's been predicted long ago. We're going to fall from inside. Kind of like the Roman Empire, where we got a lot of our ways from to begin with. The Romans, back when the Romans were world power. It's about like the same thing. And you start putting these people on this level, they can, and it's like they're men. They're just men like you and I. They're not worthy of all this praise, accolades, and all this. They should be held in criticism. That's what should keep it balanced in our nation. But when we get leaders that there's no criticism allowed, then there's a problem. We lose our freedom, we lose our democracy, and it becomes a totalitarian system. You've got a totalitarian ruler because you won't criticize them, except in a good way. Because you know how you call someone else to criticize them a name. You don't want to be labeled in that way. So anyway, there is the morning Indigenous Peoples rant. Why are Americans so afraid and so desirous of remaining so well armed as individuals? It's simply because of what this day should remind us of, Indigenous Peoples Day. It is simply because, yes, we know what we did. We know what our forefathers did. We know what was done to the indigenous peoples, and we know what can be done to us. That's why we're afraid of the Mexicans. That's why we want to shut down our borders. That's why it's important to us to have all this military might, because we know we did it. We're guilty of it. But if you're a Christian, we can take it to another level and simply say, in the matter of eternity, what difference does it make? We put so much emphasis on this little speck of time when you claim you're going to live for eternity in the glorious heavenly realm. Eternity. Have you ever thought about that? And how non-important this whole peace time is, if you truly believe in that eternity? See, I doubt most Christians. I really doubt if they really even give much thought to that eternity they claim they're focused on. Because if they did, they wouldn't be so ramped up about whether Obama's president, Trump's the president, Biden. Who cares? This is not God's kingdom. Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. They wouldn't be so worried about collecting all their material gains, 401ks. They wouldn't be concerned. That's not what Jesus promoted. Jesus promoted, said, don't worry about what you're going to eat. Don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has its worries of its own. But see, we are a nation that is so unchristian that they want to call it Christian. But it's the least Christian that you can find. Because we are so wrapped up in the capitalism. We're so wrapped up in what's in it for me. And we're so divisive. Instead of being humane, we're worried about a billionaire politician who, in all honesty, I question whether authenticity of how much his net worth is. Let's put it that way. His net worth, debt versus actual money. He's got a good cash flow. Let's put it that way. I've been there. I'm not at his level, but I was a millionaire. On paper, I was a millionaire. Could I get my hands on $1 million? No. See, that's where it is. To me, it's like if you cash everything out, you pay all your debts off, what's left? That is what your true value is. Otherwise, you're just floating. But that's what our system is made of. We become a credit score. See, we're born, and immediately our government puts a number on us, a number, Social Security number that I wasn't given until I was aged enough to work, and it was on the back of it said, for identification purposes only. Now that is your number. Some would say the mark of the beast. And that number follows you through life, and now that's all the way through. That's what you've got, and you're a credit score. They don't look at you and say, what can you afford, and that meaning how much money do you have to pay for this house, this car, or whatever. They look at you and they say, how much can you put down? See? Buy now, pay later. They don't even talk about. In fact, your question, if you walk in and pay cash for something, they're gonna check you out. It concerns them that you got the money to pay cash for something. You know, like a car, house, something like that. You watch it raises price. Where'd you get that money? You win the lottery? You're a drug dealer? Because so few are patient to work and get what they want. We want it now. Just like the Christians and their kingdom, they don't want to wait for that eternity. They want the kingdom now. Same thing Jesus talked about. You know, they got the reward now. If you ever read Matthew 5, 6, or 7, maybe you get the gist of that. But very few people want to dig that far because it doesn't fit into our culture, and our culture is more important. It's more important than the alleged or supposed eternity. So, you think about that, you sit back, pull yourself out of this bubble, and think about eternity. Claim God watching you. How much does that affect actually a concern about some God looking down from heaven and knowing not just your actions, but your motivations. People don't realize that, again, Jesus' teaching was based on principle, not by law. They fail to get that the law failed. The Israelite nation had laws from the hand of God. It wasn't 10 commandments, it was 613 commandments. They failed. They tried it, patriarchs, and they went to judges, and they went to kings, and Jesus came along and said, this is fulfilled. The law's a tutor. We learn from it. Well, what do we learn from it? We learn that imperfect man cannot live by a perfect set of laws. It's not going to work. If laws work, Texas would have no more murder. If laws work, there'd be nobody speeding on the highway. If laws work, there'd be no more people in the country and the no, don't anymore. Way we do it, that's not what is our maintain, but it's that yeah. And we're supposed to have more time and more leisure because computers are going to take away from the need of paper and things that can get to operate. We're more burdened now than we ever have been in the history of our country. We're chasing after instead of working toward. You think you're working toward it, but you're not. You're actually chasing after the next bill, chasing after, living in fear. Now but once they're pulling ahead, the ones that 20 but people the ones struggling for